We'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a full house. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for attending today's VDI is Dead, Long Live Desktop as a Service webinar brought to you by AWS, Synchronet, and DLT Solutions. My name is Tim Bartow. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Synchronet, and I'm joined today by Andrew Defoe, who serves as the Technical Business Development Lead globally for the AWS Public Sector practice. So I'd also like to thank our host, DLT Solutions, whom you may know as the government technology provider with a best-in-class portfolio and software and cloud solutions, and partners with AWS and Synchronet. So collectively, we have a lot of experience in the education and the SLG, or state and local government space. So for those of you not familiar with Synchronet, we are an advanced consulting partner focused exclusively on Amazon Web Services end-user compute solutions. So that means the desktop as a service play called Workspaces, the AppStream 2.0, Citrix, and increasingly VMware on AWS. So just end-user compute solutions. We work with a lot of government and education customers on the full life cycle, from proof of concept to production at scale to ongoing post-implementation support. So if you have any interest in exploring that roadmap, I'm happy to share some details and information of what we're doing with your peers. We're hearing from a lot of our education and state and local government customers that their on-premise or traditional VDI hosted infrastructure may be up for refresh, and they are exploring what other options that they may have available to them. And that's really the purpose of our call today. There are some good ones out there, and Andrew's about to share with you. So lastly, before we kick things off, a housekeeping item. We've got a full crew that is muted on the call. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end or somewhere along the way. But of course, if you stay all the way to the end, we're happy to share these slides with you. We've got a white paper on the end-user compute adoption framework we're happy to send, as well as some useful links. So, and our contact information. So we're here to help and happy to share what we're doing with some of your peers. So with that, I am pleased to introduce Andrew Defoe with Amazon Web Services. Andrew, take it away.
Thank you, Tim, and I'd also like to thank Synchronet and DLT for organizing this session today. Really appreciate it. So as Tim mentioned, I'm Andrew Defoe. I'm a business development manager with Amazon Web Services and our worldwide public sector team. I focus on our native desktop as a service and application streaming, file share and collaboration, and security solutions in our end user computing space. And so what we'll do for the next few minutes here is walk through some of those solutions, really focus on the key use cases for higher education that a lot of our customers are focusing on, whether that's education labs or additional use cases. We'll go into a brief demonstration of those solutions just so you can see them in action. As Tim mentioned, if you have any questions about our solutions as we go through the presentation, please add those to the question box in the right side of your screen in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll address those questions at the very end. And with that, let's get started. So the family of services that we have in our end user computing suite in AWS, the two on the left we'll spend the most time talking about today, as well as demonstrating. Amazon Workspaces is a fully managed desktop as a service solution. So this is very much a solution that you can think about for really as a like replacement for VDI, as well as for PC replacement use cases where you may be up for refresh, you may be thinking about doing things a little bit differently, and are looking to the cloud for opportunities to solve some of your existing challenges. Workspaces is a great solution, and we'll go into the specific capabilities of that product as well as the use cases that we see in higher ed. AppStream is an application streaming service, fully managed. It allows you to bring Windows-based applications to a browser. And a lot of really interesting use cases there, both for enterprise use cases as well as for education labs, bring your own device, and really thinking about the computer lab spaces of the 21st century with solutions from AppStream as well as from Workspaces. Amazon WorkLink is a secure service that allows you to access secure internal websites from mobile devices. And so you can think of this as a solution if you have challenges today around providing intranet access to your Jira, Confluence, and other internal applications. WorkLink is a very lightweight solution that allows you to do just that. And then finally, Amazon WorkDocs is our fully managed file share and collaboration service. It is very much there to allow end users to keep their data in AWS and share that data with other users, interact with that data on our Workspaces desktop or in our application streaming services, as well as for mobile devices from a browser. And is a great solution. And I'll also mention we have some bundled pricing offerings with our Workspaces desktop solution that really provide some highly resilient, flexible storage options. It really just appears as a mounted drive for users inside of AWS. However, it is replicated across multiple AWS data centers. It is highly available, highly resilient. It is a great option for end users to store and collaborate and share their data on AWS. And so what I want to mention here is we have been doing desktop as a service and application streaming as a service for several years now. We have the most experience of any of the large cloud service providers in this space. At this point in time, we have tens of thousands of customers, hundreds of thousands of end users worldwide utilizing these services on a daily basis, stemming across all different verticals and industries, including healthcare, financial services, government, and certainly education. And so our customers are all finding different use cases for desktop as a service and really focusing on the cloud for this. A lot of our customers will focus on sometimes what we call kind of the low-hanging fruit, which may be your enterprise edge use cases, maybe your remote users, contractors, researchers, but that certainly can be extended now because of the maturity of these offerings to really focus on the lion's share of all of your VDI and desktop footprint across your entire organization, whether that's desktops and solutions for faculty, staff, research, as well as for students. We have solutions that can cover all those different use cases. Every customer you see here listed, every one of them starts with a single workload, a single use case they want to solve for. The power of AWS means you're not going to be getting involved with long-term contracts or commitments. A single user and a single workload is enough to think about AWS to solve a problem, understand and learn about the service and the technology, and think about additional ways you can leverage that. Pay as you go. When you don't need it, you can turn it off. Very flexible service. And so because of that, a lot of our customers have built solutions and are now running workloads and desktops for tens of thousands of users in their organization. But it doesn't have to start that way. In fact, most of the time it just starts with a handful of users. It could be a single class or a course workload that you're trying to solve for. It could be a single team, for example, a development team or a research unit. It can start very small and grow over time based on your specific needs. And so our mission really with end user computing in AWS, it's all about giving users anywhere, anytime access to the desktops and applications and data that they need to be productive, and to do that from any device that they prefer. Whether that's a web browser or a mobile device or a device or a PC or a Mac or a Chromebook, you name it, we have a capability to run our software and services on those devices, and that really helps end users improve their productivity with very little heavy lifting from your perspective. And then from an IT perspective, what really we want to focus on is helping our customers get away from the traditional complexities of on-premises VDI as well as PC management, and really help them focus on automation, having the ability to provision desktops, applications at scale at a moment's notice, and be able to then provide the end user experiences that will make users most productive. So our goals there are really about simplifying complexity, reducing, ensuring data security where needed. Obviously, we think about compliance frameworks like FERPA, we think about HIPAA, PCI, we think about a number of different compliance frameworks. We recognize the type of data that many of our education customers work with, especially if they are research universities, and we have the compliance built into the AWS cloud and these services to provide that. But our ultimate goal is end user productivity, anywhere, anytime access. And so the typical challenges that we definitely hear from customers around the needs for end user computing solutions and what's happening today. Certainly we hear from customers about existing complex VDI deployments. most VDI solutions, virtual desktop infrastructure, as you've implemented them, probably went one of two ways. Either it was really successful and therefore was over provisioned, and you're not really able to take advantage of the capacity that you need, or because of the complexity and the technical challenges, it's underutilized and therefore costing a lot of money and not providing a lot of benefit. Very rarely do we see VDI deployments that have really hit the nail on the head in terms of providing the right user experience with the right capacity. And you're always thinking about what's happening next. Do I have to scale out? How do I refresh this? How do I keep this up to date? There's a lot of cycles being spent doing that, and we want to help customers get out of that life cycle treadmill with VDI as well as PCs. We also recognize the complexities around applications. We recognize that a lot of educators, faculty, instructors are really at the leading edge of driving curriculum and want to bring applications and experiences to students that will really help prepare them for the workforce of tomorrow. And that's complicated. It stretches the capabilities of your VDI if you're utilizing 3D and graphics. It's complicated from a license and management perspective if you're allowing that software to go on to student devices. It means your faculty and staff and instructors are probably spending a lot of the classroom time playing tech support and helping students solve problems. All those complexities result in undifferentiated heavy lifting. We want to help our customers solve those challenges and really just focus on the user experience and focus on the end goal, which is empowering the student to learn and to be successful. We also want to make sure that we're securing the environment to the extent that we need to for your specific needs. So we have a lot of universities that work with, for example, ITAR data, HIPAA data as part of research. And those devices, obviously, if you're utilizing those types of desktops and applications and data on an unsecured device, it creates a risk for the university and for your stakeholders. And so our goal is to eliminate those security risks by just providing the end user with pixels to their screen, but not having any sensitive data stored on any device so that that data is not compromised. And ultimately, what we want to do with all of this is make sure that the end user has a strong, positive user experience. They're able to access the desktops and the applications, the data they need, when they need it, where they need it, on the device of their choice. That makes them more productive, makes them be able to get in, get out, do what they have to do, and be successful. And if we really focus on the education lab challenges for a few minutes, we look at this across three different dimensions: the student perspective, the educator or the instructor, kind of the curriculum perspective, and then of course the IT admin perspective. Presents a number of challenges today. Students certainly want to be able to learn with real-world applications, understand and learn the technologies and concepts that are going to prepare them for their careers. They want to be able to do that from where they are. That could be distance learning. That could be learning from a student, shared space. It could be from a dorm room. Could be from home. Could be anywhere. They want to be able to bring their own files, and that could involve cloud storage. It could just mean the project files that they're utilizing on a daily basis. And they want to be able to do that anytime, anywhere. Having the requirement to restrict them to computer labs physically on campus that are only open certain times of day, and there may be a wait time during peak periods. These are definitely challenges that students are telling us they would like to avoid at all costs. From an educator perspective, certainly it's about providing the best learning experience. There is competition there. We recognize that a lot of institutions are competing for students and for certain degree programs. We also recognize that there are a lot of mandates and possibly policy directives that are requiring institutions to move quickly to introduce new curriculum and new courses, for example, around STEM, business analytics, artificial intelligence. And so as that curriculum becomes more complex and as those policy mandates and directives take effect, it really puts a lot of pressure on educators to deliver new experiences and new curriculum that are going to provide the student with what they need. We also recognize the limitations of physical real estate on campus today. Traditional computer labs may be either overutilized or underutilized, but in any case, there's certainly a drive to think about how do I repurpose those computer labs? How do I build the computer lab of the 21st century and make the most effective use of real estate? And of course, you can do that by taking advantage of cloud services that provide anywhere, anytime access and really dramatically rethink how those spaces are being utilized on campus. And then at the end of the day, again, thinking about the instructor spending more time teaching, not providing tech support, and allow those educators to have access to the applications that they need when they need it, and not to have to install those products, understand licenses, eliminate all those complicated tasks and centralize it with a cloud-based solution. And then from an IT perspective, it really is about helping IT give them the tools using our cloud services so that they always have the infrastructure and the managed services at their fingertips to address any change that's coming through the organization. So they can take advantage of the latest instance types for high-end graphics applications. They can take advantage of expanding storage, fast networking, high availability. Those are all capabilities that we provide essentially out of the box with our services. So any requirement that comes along, IT will have the agility to address those requirements with our services. And of course, the management and the complexity around that, especially during managing for peak, always making sure that you have the right capacity and not necessarily over provisioning for it. So when you don't need the capacity, you can dial it back down. These are all capabilities that we're going to deliver with AWS end user computing. And so really, it's all about kind of resolving tension between the student and educator and IT and what we can provide using the cloud. Students and educators work anywhere, anytime, any device, access applications, data, desktops that they need. What we want to do there is promote agility and innovation within the academic environment. And then from an IT perspective, it's all about reducing complexity and providing and empowering IT with the resources that they need. And the cloud and AWS and end user computing really is the vehicle that can transform end user computing on campus for a variety of different use cases, especially education labs. Again, with anywhere, anytime access, our global footprint, the ability to provide resources to end users, regardless of where they are in the world, is there. The ability to scale up and down, pay as you go. So if you do have changing requirements, you're adding new courses, new curriculum, new applications. You see peak periods during the time of year where you need maximum resources, other times of year that you don't necessarily need as much. You don't have to build for peak anymore with our services. You just scale to address your requirements anytime. And really, that's going to be a solution that can be automated 100%. All of our solutions utilize APIs, they utilize consoles. Partners like Synchronet augment those capabilities with really fine-tuned capabilities and layers of user automation and control that make that just a world-class experience for IT administrators to be able to manage desktops, applications at scale. And so not only are we providing value, but we're also relying on our partners like Synchronet to take it to the next level for our education customers. We are going to meet you where you are with these services. So to the extent that you have intranet services, storage, networking, identity management, authentication, single sign-on, if you have existing application servers, license servers, certificate management, all the existing IT infrastructure that you have today, you can continue to utilize and leverage with an AWS end user computing solution. We're going to meet you where you are with those systems of record and systems of truth in your organization. That being said, if you're looking for new opportunities to move a lot of those services into the cloud or extend those into the cloud, we're absolutely here to support you with that as well. But you can certainly take advantage and spin up desktops and applications tomorrow by tapping into your existing AD, existing SSO solutions, existing storage and networking, and we definitely will extend your existing IT footprint, not require you to move all of that into AWS to be able to immediately take advantage of our end user computing services. So talking now specifically about the services that we offer in the space, again, Amazon Workspaces is our desktop as a service offering. What it does is it provides a persistent cloud-based desktop to a named user in your organization. So for example, a user that is in your Active Directory. And so the user is provisioned with a desktop. That desktop can be sized for your user's specific needs in terms of CPU, memory, storage. That is extensible, and so you can vertically scale that user's desktop up or down in terms of CPU and memory if they need to change it. You can scale up in terms of storage. So if you provision a certain amount and the end user needs more, you can give them more. It doesn't even require a reboot. So it's extremely flexible in terms of the number of users and also in terms of the power that you provide to each user. You're no longer having to hit the target in terms of right sizing each of your users' use cases like you would typically have to do in a VDI environment. Every individual user, based on his or her use case and role in the organization, can receive a desktop that is matched for their specific needs based on the applications they're going to run, how they're interacting with data, running large batch jobs, analytic jobs, or just doing general productivity, checking email, browsing. You can right size a desktop to fit almost any use case with Workspaces. We can tend to think of Workspaces as perpetual PCs because you're able to take advantage of upgrades and changes to the underlying infrastructure and technology without having to re-provision the user. And what that means is you're getting off of that lifecycle treadmill of VDI and PC technology, and you're giving the user a resource they need for as long as you want them to use it. And so use cases that could be for a month, it could be for years or indefinitely, you have the advantage to take it to utilize a Workspace desktop to meet those requirements. We'll get into the specific use cases. And so we kind of can think about use cases for Workspaces three different ways. One is certainly about just modern organization and digital transformations. Thinking about if you have VDI footprint today and you're looking to consider cloud alternatives, Workspaces is that cloud alternative for desktops infrastructure that you're running on premises, as well as for PCs. If you've got, for example, laptop or PC loan programs for students, a digital cloud-based desktop can be that kind of laptop checkout program of the 21st century within your organization. We certainly can support a global workforce. So if you are a research institution and you're utilizing, providing access to resources on a global scale, let's say you've got researchers that are coming in from Asia or from Europe and need to access sensitive data that is being stored in on your network or in the cloud. You can spin up and provision desktops that allow those end users to do just that, but do it in a secure environment that does not allow those users to exfiltrate or move any data outside of your secure environment. We certainly promote bring your own device policies. And so if you think about distance learning, if you think about the number of devices that the typical student brings to campus today, most of the time it's 3 or more on average. And so students want to use those devices. They don't need another one. And so whether it's a lab computer or whether it's a distance learning program, online learning, Workspace is a great tool to provide your students with another platform for learning, access the applications data that they need, and do that in a scalable model. And then if you think about where do I need a persistent desktop solution for learning, we certainly see scenarios, especially around graduate programs, more premium experience where you may want to give the student a desktop for a degree program, maybe for a specific course that they're running. It could be a course that requires access to high-end software, as an example, business analytics or science and engineering. These are desktops that can be provisioned on a moment's notice. They can be provisioned for a user, used for a short period of time or for an extended period of time, and you have the ability to control that and adjust your capacity based on specific course enrollment on a per student basis. Project-based work is another area where we see a strong advantage around cloud and Amazon Workspaces, primarily because these are resources that you're not going to use forever. They're there to do a specific task, and they're going to spin up that infrastructure around a specific project and then turn that off when it's no longer needed. Hard to do in an on-premises data center because of the fact that you have to provision in advance, typically for peak, and then once that project is over with, you're going to be looking for other ways to leverage that infrastructure. The cloud makes that super easy in terms of the ability to spin up the infrastructure that you need when you need it and to turn it off when it's no longer required. And so the project-based work could be research-based, it could be test and dev environments, you name it. Think about those temporary short-term requirements that you may have. Workspaces can be a great solution for that. And then as I mentioned before, security is job zero for us at AWS. We think about the regulatory compliance, but also making sure that we help our customers meet their side of the compliance, and think about tools like encryption at rest, encryption at transit, logging access, all those different things that you have to do to be compliant in your data center. it's that much easier to do in the cloud because of the instrumentation that we provide and the capabilities and the automation to allow our customers to meet the strictest compliance requirements, including ITAR, our GovCloud region, and very sensitive data that is being utilized by some of your stakeholders, especially if you're a research institution. And so pivoting now into our Amazon AppStream 2.0 solution. And so where Workspaces was focusing on persistent desktop experience, desktop as a service, AppStream is all about delivering desktop applications to any computer with a browser, essentially, anytime, anywhere. And so in that scenario, what we're looking at is Windows-based applications primarily today. And so this is really becoming a very powerful solution to eliminate traditional solutions that are providing application streaming and application virtualization. The key benefits of AppStream is scalability. You have the ability to essentially take any Windows-based application and convert it into a scalable web application. So you can deliver high-end Windows-based applications to a very lightweight device. It could be a Chromebook, it could be a repurposed Windows PC, a student device, a Mac. All it needs is an HTML5 browser, and you're able to utilize any Windows-based application. And so you can scale up and down. You can meet demand requirements for a single course. It could be open access, so the ability to provide resources campus-wide. Many institutions are wholesale replacing their computer labs with solutions like AppStream because they have the ability to provide the on-demand capacity and scale up and down and dramatically reduce the cost of providing access to those applications without compromising the underlying hardware infrastructure that you need to run those high-end applications at scale. And so whether it's scaling out and also having the capabilities to run even the most demanding graphics-based applications, AppStream is a great solution for that and is really something we're really excited about in terms of higher education and that lab replacement type of opportunity that we see. We definitely have the ability to think about AppStream in addition to Workspaces. A lot of students, as we hear from them directly, as well as through our institutions and customers that we're working with, many students today are coming up and they're learning a lot of different types of devices and platforms. Maybe it's mobile, maybe it's Mac. Increasingly, having a full Windows desktop is less valuable. And so if you're really just focusing on the applications and those workflows, AppStream can be a very powerful, very lightweight solution to address those use cases. And so ways you can think about utilizing AppStream 2.0, certainly for internal kind of faculty, staff, enterprise use cases, whether you've got a complex ERP, Windows client application, or a homegrown application that you're just challenged to continue to deliver securely to users that are either running internally or outside of the office. Maybe it's a database that you're looking to protect and eliminate potential threat vectors if that user is coming in remotely. You can definitely use this for applications like SAP. Think of this for your traditional kind of app virtualization solution in the cloud. Certainly, if you have high-end 3D design and engineering requirements, the idea of working without workstations in the field. So if you do have research or ongoing activities where industrial capabilities around 3D design are required, it's great to just hit that over the internet on a browser and keep all your data and applications centralized. And of course, education labs, I think, is the foremost use case for AppStream within higher education today. Replace your traditional computer labs, enable distance learning, support bring your own device, high-end applications anytime, anywhere, with a solution like AppStream. A little more about how AppStream functions. So AppStream is actually a multitasking solution. So you can load all your applications into an image, basically a library. You can build a catalog of applications. You do have the ability to multitask and run multiple applications in parallel. Those applications can coordinate with each other. So for example, if you're running SolidWorks Suite or Esri ArcGIS Pro, MATLAB and MathWorks, Siemens NX, and other applications, we are working with these and other vendors to make sure that AppStream is the best way of running these applications in the cloud. We've published deployment guides and we have strong coordination with these vendors. And but we want to work with any Windows-based application that's out there today. and allow you to streamline and deliver those applications to nothing but a web browser. We do support instance types that are designed for general compute as well as high-end graphics optimized applications. Every time a user joins and starts a session with AppStream, they get a virtual machine that is provisioned just for them. They're not having to share that with another user, so it's not a multi-user, multi-session type of model that you might expect with a traditional, apps virtualization solution or an RDP or RDSH type of model. It actually is a multitasking solution, multiple applications, single VM, single session. Very consistent performance. The ability to really legalize any application is what we're all about with AppStream. And so I'll touch briefly on WorkLink and WorkDocs, and then we'll jump into a demonstration. Amazon WorkLink is really all about secure mobile access to internal websites and web apps. And so you can kind of think about our end user compute services as a spectrum of capabilities, whereas we're providing full desktop experience on one side, going into managed application streaming. And then with solutions like WorkLink, you're not even having them change the way the application or the website is being delivered. It's really just about securing that access, focusing on mobile users primarily. So if you do have some applications today, these could be internal websites that you do not want to expose to the internet. If you don't have mobile device management or VPN access for those, if you're looking to simplify that architecture and just provide simple access, WorkLink is basically a mobile app. You load it on your mobile device, and you provide private access to your websites. We just provide basically a streamed and vector graphics-based presentation of that website to the end user. They don't even have to think about it, but no data is left on that end user's device. We encrypt everything and protect the data so that it is not being exfiltrated from your organization into a mobile website or into a mobile device. And so again, use cases for WorkLink: compliance, certainly, mobile workforce, third-party access especially. So if you do have vendors that today may need to come in and access certain websites or resources, WorkLink can be a great way of providing lightweight access to those third-party workers without having to reconstruct or redesign your security footprint. And certainly business applications that are internal could be Jira, Confluence, SAP reporting websites, wikis and other internal websites, SharePoint, and so on. If you don't want those to be internet facing, WorkLink is a solution that can still provide mobile access to those devices without VPN and without MDM solutions that may be challenging, especially if you've got federated users like contractors, researchers, and vendors. And so with that, we can promote bring your own device and really help you modernize and externalize websites regardless of what they are. So if they're legacy websites or even the most modern up-to-date applications and websites, WorkLink can address all of those. And then finally, WorkDocs. WorkDocs is our secure file sharing and collaboration service. Just to kind of put it in context, it is very similar to solutions from Microsoft with OneDrive for Business, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box. It's a very similar type of solution. Key advantages, number one is we have a very extensible SDK. So if you do have a specific use case that requires a strong workflow, and the ability to automate tasks with human interaction as well as machine-based interaction, WorkDocs is great. If you're looking to keep your data in AWS and not to have that data floating across the internet between different cloud services, if data sovereignty is really important to you, WorkDocs is great. And then with Workspaces primarily, WorkDocs is a great solution because we do provide 50 gigabytes of data to every Workspaces user free of charge, or up to a terabyte for only $2 per user per month. And so because of that, we really look at WorkDocs potentially as a solution for your default user profile and your user storage. You can offload that from a traditional kind of block storage on your desktop, utilize WorkDocs Drive. It just shows up as a mounted drive in the end user's desktop. And it's a great way to automatically back up. We version data, we maintain that data for up to a year. So it's an outstanding solution, very low cost with Workspaces, and a great way for you to think about storing and maintaining your data, and especially protecting anything against things like ransomware and things like that, because we version every file. So if a file gets accidentally deleted or if it gets corrupted, we have the ability to go back to any version of that file and restore it. And so it's very powerful to make sure that you don't have any risks around your user data, both with a workspace or by itself. And just to speak a little bit about our global footprint, the services that we talked about today are available globally. And so if you're really focusing on certain regions within the US, or if you do have potential to work with researchers or partner universities in different parts of the world, we have the global footprint to support that. And I'll also call out our GovCloud region. We do support GovCloud for Workspaces, primarily to address compliance requirements, specifically ITAR data. So again, if you are a research university, if you participate in consortia that utilizes data potentially from NASA or other government entities, ITAR may be relevant to your use case, and in that scenario, GovCloud is the preferred region for that type of data. If it's HIPAA data, if it's classified as PCI or other US-based regions, are definitely prepared to support those workloads. Okay, so let's take the opportunity to go into a brief demonstration, and then we'll look at the Q&A, and I'll turn it back over to Tim in just a few minutes. So what I'll do now is just kind of briefly demonstrate our Workspaces solution. So Workspaces, is our desktop as a service. And so we do have client applications for Workspaces for just about any platform, whether it's Windows, Mac, Chromebook, Android, iOS, or you can access it just over a browser. And so in my example, I'll just utilize our Workspaces client app for the Mac. And so what I can do here is just log in with my AD credentials. And so I'm just going to log in with my user account here. We do support optionally two-factor authentication. So if you're utilizing an app or a token, you do have the ability to introduce two-factor authentication to protect the desktop if needed. And so with Workspaces, we do provide two different ways of running the desktop. One is called Always On. And so with Workspaces, what you're basically doing is paying for a desktop per user. You can pay a flat rate per month based on the size of the machine, and you can change the size of the machine so you're never locked in, and you can turn it off anytime. But the Always On is a great solution if you have users that will be primarily utilizing the Workspace as their full-time desktop. And so this really can be a full replacement for VDI or for a PC. With an Always On, the machine is just that. It's always running 24/7 and is always ready to accept a user's login request, and all the application data state is preserved. The user can log out, log back in. It's the same machine, same data. It's not going to float across the different resources. It's always one-to-one for the end user. We also offer what we call an auto stop or an hourly model for Workspaces. And this is a scenario where you still want that persistent experience for the desktop, but you do not necessarily need that resource to be running all the time. Maybe it's a desktop that is going to be used occasionally by an end user because it's a secondary desktop or just utilized sparingly by the end user. Our auto stop model allows you to pay hourly with a small fixed cost just for the backup and for the storage. But the idea there is if you do have a use case that requires a persistent desktop but does not require that machine to be running all the time, the auto stop model is great. You have the ability to flip back and forth between those different running modes anytime you want, and you can do that on a per user basis. We also offer some solutions like a cost optimizer that will actually analyze your usage across your entire organization with Workspaces and help you make recommendations on the appropriate running modes based on actual user patterns. And so over time, what you can really do is optimize and right size the environment based on actual usage patterns across your user base. With the auto stop model, there is a slight delay for the workspace to be basically woken up. It goes into essentially a hibernated state when a user is not signed in. That allows you to pay less. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes for the machine to come up again. Very analogous to kind of closing the lid on your laptop. We do save and persist all of the application data, the application state. Everything is as the user left it, unless of course they logged out. But it is still persistent, and so it's a very unique running mode and model compared to other desktop solutions that are out there, because you can marry up persistent experience with low cost because of that flexibility of not running the resources when no one's logged into them. And so both of those auto stop and always on running modes are available to you, again, on a per user basis. And so I've logged into my workspace here. I've got a Windows desktop available to me. I can access my applications, my data. I have the ability as an administrator to control what this desktop can access in terms of on-premises network resources, the internet. It's basically going to be running in a virtual private cloud inside of your AWS account, and you have full control over what you want this desktop to access. We have some use cases where this desktop may not have any internet access at all. It's only going to be utilized to access some internal data or databases that you may have in your environment. And so you definitely can cover use cases that are really kind of data hotels or data enclaves where it's really just about accessing sensitive data and you don't want any of that data to ever leave your environment. Or if it's really a student desktop and it's really just there to access the internet, access applications, data, you have full control to be able to add internet access to these desktops and give them that access. That can be routed back through your on-premises networks and security gateways, or go directly out to the internet through resources that you provision inside of AWS. Again, the key message there is you have full control as an admin of how these desktops are will access different resources or the internet in your environment. And so that is Workspaces. What I'll do now is just do a brief demonstration of AppStream. And so AppStream does support single sign-on with SAML 2.0 provider. So in this example, I'm going to utilize G Suite as my provider, and I'm going to access an application catalog that is provisioned through G Suite for me as a user. And so I'll click into AppStream, and what I will immediately see is I'm now basically doing a single sign-on request into my AppStream 2.0 application catalog. I see I have applications like Blender, Robot C, I've got RStudio, Fusion Autodesk. So I'll go ahead and click on Fusion Autodesk 360. What's happening now is I'm going to have a session, a virtual machine from a pool of resources that can scale up and down to meet demand. That's going to be assigned to me, and now I'll have, as a single user on this virtual machine, access to all the resources that I need for my environment. And so you can see I'm instantly launching this from a Chrome browser, no plugins, nothing to install on the client side. I can now access, in this particular example, it's a named user license model. So I'll just log in with my credentials for my application. And then as I'm logging into that application, I still have access to other applications. And so I can launch RStudio, I can launch, let's say, LibreOffice or other productivity applications. We absolutely run in a multitasking model. And so you have the ability to jump back and forth between these applications, multitask, use multiple applications in parallel using this app switcher. And then I can jump into any one of these applications at any time. The browser experience, I can go full screen. I have the ability to adjust my streaming metrics and adjust resolution, regional settings if need be, if I'm an international user, and maybe utilizing different keyboard settings than my image has been set up for. I can do copy paste. I can actually bring up a My Files dialog, and I can drag and drop files from my local desktop or device into the session. We do provide persistent file access, and so a user could store their files in what we call a home folder, which can be stored in AWS in our S3 service. But we also support native integration with many of the cloud storage solutions that are popular in higher education. And so we do work natively with OneDrive as well as with Google Drive. And so you can map your Google Drive account directly into the AppStream session. And so I can see my Google Drive files there. Inside the session, the way that shows up is if I click on a file, I can just open up an existing file from my Google Drive, open my computer, and I can now see Google Drive listed here. And so, for example, if I had as part of a team drive or maybe my own files, I can go under shared files in my team drive. I can open up Autodesk, grab an example project file, open that up. So we're automatically synchronizing Google Drive and OneDrive and our own S3 home folders behind the scenes. Just shows up as a subfolder inside the session. So it's a seamless way for students to access and bring the storage solutions that you've provisioned for them and to persist that data across sessions. What we also persist in AppStream is the application settings. And so if you have a user go in and make some customizations to the applications and customize, let's say, some menus or preferences, to make the user more productive, we have the ability to persist those settings and store those on a per user basis. So the next time the user logs in, they're going to be logging into a fresh machine, fresh VM, fresh applications, but the settings will be persisted so that they are able to be more productive. They can get right back to their files, the application settings as they've left it, and be that much more productive inside of the application, running on the browser, on any device that it has internet connectivity, essentially. And so I can click on that file. It'll open up the project file, and I'll just wait for that for a second. And I can then kind of just quickly demonstrate the ability to kind of pan around and see that this is an accelerated graphics instance. You never know how this comes across in a webcast, but we are utilizing graphics instances that have either AMD FirePro or NVIDIA GPUs. And so without having any hardware acceleration on my endpoint device, I'm able to take advantage of and utilize graphics accelerated applications being delivered again through the browser to my end user. And so I can work on this project, I can save it back. We also support network file shares that are on premises in AWS. And so lots of different flexible storage options. AppStream can be domain joined. So these machines, as they're provisioned into your environment, can be part of your domain. They can just be separate if they don't need to be part of that. We consider AppStream to be instances to be what we call ephemeral. So they only live as long as the session. Once the session's over with, we throw away the machine and replace it in the pool. Very lightweight operationally to manage and maintain. All you focus on is setting up your applications in your base image, maintaining that image over time based on application changes, new applications that you want to add. You publish that to a fleet of resources and infrastructure. You set up the scaling rules of how you want that to scale up and down. It can scale on demand. It can scale based on a schedule. And then you decide your access policies. What students will access it? Are they part of an AD group? Are there some other mechanism that you want to drive permissions? Lots of flexible options there. And at the end of the day, once it's all set up, it's lights out. You don't have to manage the infrastructure. You don't have to manage the scale. We take care of all of that. All the end user has to do is log in, get started, run their applications, and the rest we take care of. So it's a very lightweight solution operationally to take advantage of. So with that, let me turn it back to Tim, and let's see if we have any questions that we can answer.
That is so cool. Thank you, Andrew. I never get tired of watching that. And if you have any questions, remember, type them into the right side of your Q&A panel on the GoToWebinar. But so imagine you're looking at, Andrew's probably running this on Wi-Fi on a MacBook. We've done demonstrations on Chromebooks, zero clients, thin clients, smartphones. You haven't lived until you've seen an Autodesk Revit demo on a Note 9 tied to a 60-inch panel. Very interesting stuff. So imagine, anytime, anywhere access from any device. It's secure, it's scalable. You only pay for what you use and pay as you go. You can ramp up resources literally within hours instead of weeks and months in the procurement cycle, and tear them down at the end of the semester when you don't need them. There's a number of use cases, whether you need a full persistent Windows 10 experience or whether you just, need non-persistent special, specific access to an application, whether it's Adobe or Autodesk or Esri, students, labs, administrative staff across a number of devices. So it's very interesting, and AWS is the market leader in this space. So if you're interested for your government agency or your university or education organization, we're happy to share with you what some of your peers are doing. This is public information, but AWS has some 4,000 government agencies, I think over 9,000 education, and 20+ thousand not-for-profits. So Synchronet is a specialty partner, and we unlock some Amazon partner funding. So if this is something that you're intrigued by, please reach out to Andrew or myself or your local account team from AWS, and we're happy to share some additional information specific to your use case. So I don't see any questions in the panel unless I'm missing it. Andrew, do you have access to the question panel?
I do. Sometimes these questions don't show up depending on the permissions here. I know a couple of common questions that we hear from customers, typically as they dive into this is, what are the kinds of different types of licensing, for example, that AppStream supports? Sometimes that's not always obvious. And so AppStream works really well in a named user or concurrent license type of model. What tends to not work quite so well with AppStream is if you have some legacy applications that are tied to, let's say, license keys that are hardware based. Maybe they're mapping to a host name, or they're mapping to a specific MAC address or a device, or maybe even a USB fob, which is still out there. Those types of licenses tend to be a little bit challenging within AppStream. But any kind of network-based licensing, so if you have network license servers for Autodesk or for SolidWorks, those are absolutely solutions that we can utilize. We can set up private connectivity into those license servers where they sit today. We can help you migrate those license servers into AWS. What a lot of customers do is split their licensing so they can continue to support their current environment, but then move some of those licenses into AWS and just have a local license server running in the cloud. So that's absolutely an option, and we can help you work with your vendors to work out those details. And then also named user licenses. And so if you have online licenses from, let's say, Esri or even Adobe Creative Cloud, those are absolutely licenses that you can take advantage of. And those types of scenarios, normally what the vendor is tracking is the number of activations for a specific end user. We can help with that as well. We've got some things like session hooks we can tap into so that we can automate the activations for a particular user against a piece of software. And so lots of kind of tricks to the trade there to help customers get up and running with applications. And of course, the key message there is we are working directly with a number of the vendors that you're already working with to provide application access for your coursework and for your labs. And so chances are the applications that you want to run, we're all either already running or are talking to the vendors to get our education customers up and running. And so let us know, please reach out, and we'd be happy to help you determine which applications are ready to go and which applications we can help you onboard. One other quick question that I know a lot of our customers ask about is bandwidth, right? How much network bandwidth do I need to be successful within a solution like AppStream or Workspaces? And so of course the answer to that is always it depends. If I click on this example here, I can click on my streaming mode, and I can click on metrics, and you can kind of see as I just show this here, we do provide some metrics and we do track this information. So you can kind of see as I'm moving this around to get a general sense of bandwidth. So it's clearly based on changes and refreshes across the entire screen, how often that's happening. Typically speaking, from a network latency perspective, we want to see less than 50 milliseconds for the best possible experience for very high-end graphics in 3D. But for non-3D use cases, generally up to 150 milliseconds is ideal. Tim is right. I'm just accessing this over a Wi-Fi from the office on a Mac, so there's nothing special about the network. I'm not any closer to an AWS region than you probably are. So it's certainly very easy to get set up. The key thing there is to look at concurrent usage, make sure that you're, if you're going to put 100 students into a single classroom, that your local area network is going to support the latency and the bandwidth that you would need for application streaming. And then obviously those 3D use cases are going to be the most taxing. For a 2D use case, generally the bandwidth is anywhere from 300 kilobits per second up to about a megabit and a half. Not a huge amount, but those 3D use cases where we want to spend a little more time working with you to understand what those requirements are. The good news is every application that we have onboarded into AppStream that we have co-authored best practices and deployment guide with those vendors. We have also published recommendations for network latency and bandwidth into your nearest AWS region. So we have the data, we have the expertise and the buy-in from the vendors, and so look forward to working with you on making sure that your local network is equipped to be able to support that at scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming up on the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for participating. Andrew, thank you and AWS for some great information, and to our host DLT and the team. So we'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.